Well, I'm impressed. I mean, you're saying you're fully committed. You know, there's no future if we don't take this country back. Donald Trump, I hope you can help uncripple America. Thank you so much, sir. You will be attacked for coming on, and we know you know that. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Donald Trump overall is right about saying that we need to ban Muslims coming into the nation until we get the visa situation and the problem handled, because upwards of 25% that have been polled say that they want to sympathize with ISIS or conduct violent acts in Europe and the United States.
Because upwards of 25% that have been polled say that they want to sympathize with ISIS or conduct violent acts in Europe and the United States.
All these other Muslim leaders saying they are weak. The Americans, the Europeans, take them, take their women, take them now. You know, your women are... I mean, you can't even make up that stereotype. We are coming, weak Europeans, for your women. We will have them. They will soon wear the hijab and will do as we say. Your women are ours. Allah Akbar! Allah Akbar! Allah, I punch you in the nose, I pull dress off. Allah Akbar. You stupid Americans.
The Free Thought Project has written a piece on Alex Jones, which highlights that what I'm doing now is tapping into the zeitgeist. There is an awakening happening right now within the alternative media. That Alex Jones, the Alex Jones of today, is not the Alex Jones of yesterday. And that is of concern. That is of concern to many people that have supported Alex Jones and have gotten behind him and have promoted his work and his websites and everything else all these years. So I'm not alone in seeing the Alex Jones hypocrisy. I'm not alone in seeing Alex Jones as someone that has done a 180. And so what I'm going to do for you now, and this is perfect that I do this now, after completing the last video, highlighting parts of the interview with Donald Trump, where it gets behind the Donald Trump narrative. Now, being that Alex Jones has been warning people about false flag terror attacks for many years, during his career as a radio broadcaster and documentary filmmaker, to see him go in this direction is as if he has some sort of advanced knowledge of something that's coming, and he's prepping his audience for something. And before I get to this article, another point that I want to make, it's as if he and Donald Trump are there to demonize the American image. Here Alex Jones has accused everyone else of doing that, and everyone else of being COINTELPRO, and just about anyone that disagrees with him. What we know is that he's been doing what he's been doing for so long with protection, without anyone stopping him from saying anything that he said, that we know of. And so for years, people have wanted to know, well, how can you say those things and almost sound so insightful as he's been, clearly on the air over the years? He used to talk a lot more about a full-on war with the cops. And people have been hearing this stuff going, why is this guy on the radio doing this? In a nation where the FBI has been very active publicly in white supremacist organizations, black supremacist organizations, and other groups. In a day and age where the government is busy setting up sovereign groups, which is why being a part of many groups today is a very dangerous thing. You don't know who you're dealing with. But Alex Jones has, with his recent actions, shown many people he is not what he seems. And so I really have to commend Matt Agarist, who put this together on the 16th of December. I saw this posted on Kurt Haskell's page, who is a former Alex Jones guest. For those that don't know, he was the individual that saw someone that appeared to be a government employee, an insider, someone in a suit, a sharp-dressed man, take the underwear bomber through customs and through the checkpoint, even though the guy did not have his own passport, the underwear bomber. He was aided on the plane by a man in a suit, according to Kurt Haskell, who was the eyewitness while waiting in line. And so he went on the Alex Jones show years ago, and they were highlighting this government plot to get someone on a plane to commit this terror attack, attempted terror attack, that would provide more justification for military operations overseas. That's what Kurt Haskell was doing on the Alex Jones show years ago, just to highlight how much he's changed and how many people that have been closely associated with Alex Jones are concerned about this. I mean, they're not exactly attacking Alex Jones. They're going, what the fuck, because they have common sense. They have a sense of rationale. They know how much the government is involved in fermenting these groups, radical Islam in particular, funding it. So for Alex Jones to get behind a narrative that all these immigrants have ISIS ideology, that's very suspicious. And so Kurt Haskell is where I first saw this report. He posted it last night on Facebook. So the title of it is, "To All Those Who Fear and Hate Muslims, ISIS Propaganda is Working on You." And this was posted at mintpressnews.com. And I will leave a link down below. Alex Jones, Trump, and the rest of fascist Muslim-fearing cowards have been pushing this narrative and stoking dangerous levels of hate because they are buying into the ISIS propaganda. And again, this was originally produced on the Free Thought Project. On Monday, the leading presidential candidate for the Republican Party, Donald Trump, proposed banning an entire group of people from the United States based solely on their religious preference. However, the neocons on the right and left were forced to make statements opposing this outlandish proposal. However, many people actually supported this tyrannical notion. Former supporter of liberty at Infowars.com, Alex Jones, put out a video Tuesday supporting Trump's plan, saying Donald Trump is right about saying that we need to ban Muslims coming into the nation until we get the visa situation and the problem handled. Because upwards of 25% of Muslims who've been polled say they have sympathy for ISIS and want to conduct violent attacks in Europe and the United States. This assertion from Jones that upwards of 25% of Muslims have gone on record and say they want to conduct violent attacks against the U.S. and Europe is supported by zero evidence. In fact, Infowars published an article that linked to the actual data, which proves them wrong. In a blatant attempt to strike fear into the hearts of their xenophobic reader base, who used to be anti-war and pro-freedom of religion, Jones shills once again for Trump by pointing out that 21% of Syrians polled had a favorable view of ISIS. What Infowars conveniently left out, however, is the fact that the country with the highest levels of support for ISIS outside Syria showed only 14% of people have a favorable view of this group, if even that. None of the data showed that any of these supposed ISIS supporters want to conduct violent actions, attacks in Europe and the United States. Nevertheless, Jones, Trump, and the rest of the fascist Muslim-fearing cowards have been pushing this narrative and stoking dangerous levels of hate because they are buying into the ISIS propaganda. Or perhaps worse. Perhaps it's the real job of Alex Jones to be pushing this narrative at this time that he has amassed such a large audience. In one of their recent and repulsive anti-Muslim posts, Paul Joseph Watson dare to refer to anyone who thinks Muslims are peaceful as stupid. Now you're going to have to go to the article to see a good picture of this. But what InfoWars and Paul Joseph Watson have been doing as they talk about the phony, non-existent Islamic threat and Islamic invasion is they post very unattractive pictures of Islamic men with certain shaped skulls, jawline, and ears. And so, for me, it's a throwback to the old world of eugenics in Europe, where they were demonizing Europeans and other immigrants at that time in Italy, not just Nazi Germany, based on their appearance. They were stereotyped. They were put into a certain class. They were looked down upon. And so what InfoWars is doing what Paul Joseph Watson is doing is they're actually doing what was already done before in the past, before people were rounded up and put in camps. So this is very alarming, going back to the article. To make brash, sweeping statements about hundreds of millions of people is not only dangerous, but it's, as Watson would say, stupid. As the Free Thought Project's Will Grigg points out, these claims must be perplexing to Will Cawley, an observant Muslim who serves as National Director of Muslims for Liberty, a libertarian organization promoting charity, voluntarism, and mutual respect among people of all backgrounds. Rather than seeking a centralized, despotic theocracy, Cawley maintains that Islam, in its original manifestation, promotes a decentralized social order in which the believer enjoys unmediated access to God, and all men and institutions are equal before God. From Cawley's perspective, Sharia law does not require universal submission to Muslim rule, but rather dictates that Muslims are to respect the liberties of those who follow a different faith. However, in this massive disinformation media machine that seems to be coming at us from all different angles, it is a narrative that all Muslims have plans to commit terrorism in the United States. And Muslim women have been, for whatever reason, particularly targeted. And we are seeing also an increase in attacks on Muslims in the United States, in Australia, in Canada. And I will also add, before going back to the article, that there are aspects of the establishment, corporations, for example, that are acting in a certain manner to pour gasoline on the fire. In no way do I think that McDonald's, Kmart, Walmart, Burger King, Taco Bell actually care about Muslims or respecting people's religion. I mean, bombs are dropping on Islamic countries. That's how you stop the problem. When you're an inhumane society that is completely callous. Drone attacks killing 9 out of 10 civilians. You stop that. That's the issue. Not catering to people in a restaurant. So there were reports coming out saying that Burger King is going Sharia law, Burger King is catering to Muslims and removing pork from certain products or things of that nature, being Muslim friendly. When I hear stuff like this, I hear like the machine itself and its corporations doing things to pour gasoline on the fire, to add to that false narrative that there is a Islamic invasion and that the U.S. government is somehow doing things to favor them, which is really messing with people's minds at this time and sending people in the direction of Alex Jones, sending people in the direction of Donald Trump. And so I really want to make that point clear, that if you're hearing stories about restaurants or other things catering to Muslims and it's like a fast food joint, like you got to see the deception in that one. And I was told that this was going on by somebody else. And there are fake reports on the internet that people unfortunately are believing. And those fake reports exist on the internet to send people further into this psychosis that they're being invaded, that there's this Islamic Red Dawn. Of course, to take them away from the real threats that our country may face later on. Threats that I actually discuss on this YouTube channel that do involve China and Russia. So going back to this article from the Free Thought Project on Alex Jones. Aside from the insanely off-keel generalization that highlights a deliberate ignorance among those pushing such fear, the effects of said fear are dangerous. The impact of fools spreading hate has already begun to materialize, sending ISIS into a fury of celebration, as creating a divide between Muslims and everyone else is their stated mission. As the Free Thought Project's Jay points out, if there is one thing that Islamic fundamentalists and Islamophobic fascists like Trump agree on, it's that there should be no gray zone, only black and white. The gray zone is the zone of peaceful coexistence. Eliminating the gray zone and rendering a world as black and white as the flag of the Islamic State is the ultimate goal of fundamentalists on all sides. In fact, a recent ISIS publication titled Extinction of the Gray Zone made clear that the strategy has been at play for the past 14 years. Quote, the gray zone is critically endangered, rather on the brink of extinction. Its endangerment began with the blessed operation of September 11th, as these operations manifested two camps before the world, for mankind to choose between a camp and Islam, and a camp for the Crusader Coalition. Again, I'm reading from an ISIS publication that's quoted in this article, and that publication was called Extinction of the Gray Zone, highlighting the similarity between the far right and ISIS, that there is no room for peace in our world. We must have this clash of civilizations, and how this programming is existing on both sides. And Alex Jones and others have previously talked about radical Islam being funded by the West, the radical version of it, not the peaceful version of it. So how does Alex Jones go from highlighting that and stories in the past where British troops, for example, dressed up like Arabs and they were caught in Iraq? They're trying to stir stuff up between one group and another, dressed as Arabs, dressed as Iraqis. Alex Jones and others have been putting out this information, which the world needs to be aware of. The world needs to be aware that those levels of deceptions are taking place. Just like sometimes you have cops that infiltrate a protest that's peaceful in order to get something going. We're seeing this on a larger scale in the Middle East. And it tells you something about how deeply someone can be corrupted to the dark side if they're able to go from one side of the pendulum or one end of reality and go all the way in this other weird direction as we see these far-right movements rising across the planet after the supposed Islamic threat. We see the rise of the far right in Paris. We see it in Greece. We see it here in the United States. We see all-time high number of not only Americans buying guns, but the side that people don't want to talk about, more involvement on the part of some Americans with white supremacist organizations and the adopting of white supremacist ideologies. And so dovetailing the fake Islamic threat, you have the white genocide narrative, which isn't literally like a genocide. It's the fact that you're having, because of different races living in certain areas, multiculturalism, which is automatically denounced as that of the New World Order. So if you have people of different bloodlines coming together and having a child, for example, I am of a mixed background with parents from two different parts of the continent. My mother being a fourth or fifth generational Oregonian. When I see them talk about white genocide, they're talking about a Europe that could potentially be full of Alex Ansary types or people of my makeup or people mixed with a similar cocktail genetic blend. And to see that being done and being like the basis for this, like, oh my God, we're so freaked out that there's going to be humans walking amongst us in Europe that won't be full Aryan, that might have a little bit of something else in them. What they've done is they've skewed reality, and they've made the whole thing be like, okay, there's this giant rape happening of European women on the part of Muslim men, with false stories out there saying that it's all single men. There are other reports showing families immigrating over, and families with women without veils wearing makeup. Okay, so Jeff Rentz, Alex Jones, Red Ice Creations, and other websites. TruthRevolt.org. I heard even Michael Desarian is on board with the narrative. Mark Dice is on board with the narrative. They're all like saying the same disinformation about Muslims, and they're all promoting this false Islamic threat. These members of what some have called the truth movement, obviously they're not very involved in promoting truth. Whether they're infiltrators or whether they're under a spell, again, I don't know what the answer is, and I won't come to a immediate conclusion. We need to continue to investigate what is causing this spell, though, or influence over these men in the alternative media that used to share truth with us. Now what they're doing, in every angle that I can look at this, is serving the agenda of the New World Order to divide and conquer. And it's serving the agenda of whatever dark force is controlling politics on this planet. So when they keep people in a state of racial tension, constantly afraid, constantly looking over their shoulder, constantly allowing the government to frighten them so they can continue to have these military occupations overseas, which makes the potential links between Alex Jones and the Council on National Policy all the more interesting, because for years I've looked away from those documentaries, the Secret Right series, because of a personal beef that I had with Mr. Reeves, the filmmaker, who didn't treat me with very much respect when I was also on Oracle Broadcasting to show after him. And to me, if someone has important information to share, they should be cordial. But regardless of that, I reviewed The Secret Right, Volume 1, the other day. And this was made, I think, around the 2009 or 10 time period. The CMP was founded in 1981. And a lot of the members were involved with the Reagan administration. And we could see a agenda of what could call the far right to Christianize the world with, of course, their brand and blend and understanding of Christianity, which really might be a cover for something else. Looking at what our government's been involved in. And so when I first heard about the idea of, there being some secret organization called the CMP that had a far right agenda, when I looked at some of those people that this documentary filmmaker was citing, I'm looking at this like, this person's crazy. How can you accuse these people of being a part of the conspiracy when they're going on the Alex Jones show and they're talking about the New World Order? So I had this thinking back then, several years ago, when the film came out. These people are doing good work. I've talked to Joel Skousen. I don't know that he's a part of anything nefarious. I think that Joel Skousen has put out good information. But when you look at the fall roster list, what is available, what we can find out, which isn't a whole lot, about the CMP, which meets 3 times a year in secret. Of course, they keep the focus on the CFR and the Bilderberg group. There are other groups, many other groups out there. And there are some groups that very likely we could see now that are part of this conspiracy to demonize the whole part of the world, the Muslim world, and I think it's really more about race, folks, than religion. For years, some of these people have been involved in putting out information about the New World Order, and I did not see this coming 10 years ago. It's like they're reading a page from the Albert Pike Handbook for World War III. So are there agents amongst us, triple agents amongst us, whether it's Israel or something we don't know about? Or is it some sort of a spell they're under? Is it mind control? Again, we will keep looking at the root cause of what is causing this madness within our own society. But in light of what we're seeing from Alex Jones and the narrative that's being put out there. Also, Jerome Corsi endorsing Trump as well, member of the CMP. I wonder what the CMP's view is of Trump. Being that Trump is acting like he's there, hey Christians, I will protect you. I mean, he said that last week. And he said that several times when he's spoken in front of Christians. Christians, I'm one of you. And even the way he says it isn't even legitimate. Like, it's done to be openly deceitful. So only someone that would go along with this Trump Jones choo-choo train from hell, only people that would go along with this and buy into this are people that are like very susceptible to programming and influence and redirection. And I think that's really why we need to bring attention to this. We're not trying to debunk the idea of the conspiracy or the New World Order or the threat of more wars. Instead, we're looking at Alex Jones playing a role to, for years, draw people in to his influence and to be supported by perhaps special interests behind the scenes that we'll never know anything about, that perhaps donated a great sum of money to Alex Jones, perhaps anonymous donations during the periodic money bombs, a great way to get a boost and not really trace where that money's coming from when you have a lot of money coming from anonymous donors all at once. And so it's very possible that Alex Jones has been funded, groomed, and prepared to play a role and has been protected this entire time and well-financed this entire time to have the staff that he has. We really should ask the question, is it really just Alex's talent and his hard work that has led to literally where he's at in the pyramid of the media monopoly, him with his position holding a monopoly, if you will, over the alternative media and being influential within the mainstream media and being a go-to guy for the mainstream media when they need someone to come on TV and talk to Piers Morgan and act like a violent sociopath when, perhaps they should be calmly talking about gun rights instead of challenging a CNN anchor to a boxing match, also conditioning your audience, Alex Jones conditioning his audience, to thinking that such behavior is acceptable. So the point that they're making in the article is that both ISIS and the far right have a philosophy of intolerance. Both have a philosophy of the extinction of the gray zone. No coexistence. And the article points that these are the same sentiments that were expressed by George W. Bush when he infamously said, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. In fact, let me just back up. Okay, so what this article is pointing out is that there is a similarity in ISIS ideology and the far-right ideology, that there is no coexistence possible between us, no peace, no gray zone. And the article writes, these are the same sentiments expressed by George Bush when he infamously said, either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. And also, to add into that, Alex Jones has been using this type of thinking process, programming on his audience. Either you are with us or you are with the terrorists. Now, Alex Jones himself, with his 9/11 films on the 9/11 conspiracy, featured clips of Bush saying that. So Alex Jones has exposed, supposedly, a great deal of what the system is doing, only to use the system's techniques of programming, of brainwashing, even certain symbols and things that have been branded, and even the cross, the Swiss cross, which is regularly pops up on the screen when you're watching the InfoWars videos, leading many people to think that, Alex Jones is openly telegraphing who he works for and his involvement in this by using those symbols and using Masonic terms on his show. And quite a bit going on with Alex Jones and the monitors behind him. Often an FBI logo, for some reason, is often popping up behind Alex Jones in that monitor behind him. You pay attention to what's happening on the monitors behind Alex Jones. You have a whole world of symbolism, devil ears, pyramids, crosses. So for those that study the occult and study symbols, I mean, you have an all-you-can-see buffet watching the InfoWars radio show with Alex Jones, with all that's going on his monitors. Continuing and going back to the article. Now the terrorists and the demagogues in the West are getting closer to their goal of divide and conquer than ever before. We are witnessing Muslims being thrown off buses because of ignorant passengers fearing for their lives. We are seeing physical assaults waged by fearful pawns in ISIS's propaganda campaign against peaceful Muslims who have harmed no one. Again, think of all the Muslims that have been in this country since 9/11. How many genuine terror attacks have we had in this country since 9/11? If all Muslims have an ideology of kill, 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 it doesn't make any sense, and it isn't factual. It's a complete fraud. Since the Paris attacks alone, there have been 24 anti-Muslim attacks in the United States. That's what's been reported. These attacks range from rubbing human feces and leaving pig heads outside of mosques to beatings and even killing people for their religion. If you are willing to harass, hurt, or kill an innocent person because of their religion, you are no better than ISIS. You are also hurting the fight against terrorism. One brief point that I want to make in this video that I've made in a lot of the other videos is we are living now in a culture, a panicked, freak-out mode culture, where someone could be attacked because they're not fully Anglo or white. This means that Hispanics living in the United States could be misidentified as ISIS or Middle Eastern, now that people are drawing and creating a blurry line between ISIS and Middle Eastern people. In my opinion, many people of olive skin, that means Mexicans, that means Hispanics, that means Spanish, that means anyone with a non-English sounding last name, could be profiled. And that is the seriousness of the situation that everybody needs to be aware of. Now, none of this is good for white America. All this, by the way, appears to be done to demonize our country to prepare us for what's to come. That's how white people are affected when they're living in a society where a certain amount of their brothers and sisters are being fed propaganda to hate other people that don't look pure-blooded, blonde-haired, blue-eyed. And I'm not the only one that sees this. This is not about religion. Those that don't see this are being led into a trap. Okay, going back to the article and finishing the last of it. According to recent polls and studies conducted in the last few years, Muslims have been crucial in helping law enforcement and find terror suspects in the United States. Many have served in the military, protecting the country against terrorists. And many Muslims have been highly outspoken against terrorist organizations. There's also many Muslims that have been pro-Bush, pro-Obama, that have migrated to the United States many years ago and became citizens many years ago and became educated in this country many years ago that are now working as translators throughout the Middle East that are Muslim. Just to add that to this as well. Just this week, 70,000 clerics came together, representing the majority of the Muslim world and publicly denouncing ISIS as a threat to humanity. Okay, there's been many groups, many Muslim groups coming forward saying, no, we don't stand with this. Stop saying that we do. Why are you doing this? Meanwhile, InfoWars goes out to start things up with a mosque in Texas. Not too far away from the time period where there was a shooting where an Iraqi man in the Dallas area was shot and killed. He just came out of his house one day. He was looking down at his cell phone. Someone shot him at point blank range. See, how did they know he was a Muslim or an Iraqi? Unless A, they were stalking him, or his physical appearance looked like that of one. Again, drawing a concern that I have about the physical safety of everyone, many people in America, being that, there's many people out there that make assumptions, and there's many white men, for that matter, that enjoy having a beard. Many white men enjoy having a thick beard, sometimes long. They don't all have the Irish Viking look. Some of them have a dark beard. So we're looking at a recipe for disaster. Also, a Duke University study found that more terrorism suspects and perpetrators were brought to the attention of law enforcement by members of the Muslim American community than were discovered through U.S. government investigations. And a Pew study found that roughly half of U.S. Muslims say their religious leaders aren't speaking out enough against Islamic extremism, reports CNN. The way to truly defeat ISIS is by rendering their fear and divisive tactics impotent. The U.S. needs to show ISIS and those being manipulated by their tactics, like Donald Trump, that tolerance and freedom are far more powerful than bigotry and hate. Also, Americans will do well to remember how it was that ISIS came to be in the first place and avoid future murderous blunders that will inevitably fill the ranks of extremist groups with even more susceptible victims of Western foreign policy. You can bow down to the will of ISIS by allowing their hate-filled rhetoric and divisive tactics to cloud your mind with fear and hatred, or you can rise up and stand against those who would drive a wedge through the heart of humankind. The choice is yours. Please share this article. And I ask you to share this article. It will be down below in the comment section. This is not an article that was written from a conspiratorial worldview. It is looking at ISIS with the official story of ISIS being a crime syndicate really of hate that doesn't actually represent Muslims. Muslims have stepped forward and denounced ISIS. Alex Jones himself has talked about the government fermenting terror cells, not only in Middle Eastern countries, but also in this country, in a way almost telegraphing and telling the story about his own potential role in all this. Something that we will continue to look at in this Alex Jones Deception series. For now, I'm Alex Ansary signing off for December 17th, 2015.